This is the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and hitting subscribe on your friend's phone without them knowing. Coming to you from the Kitchen Studios in downtown Raleigh. This episode is sponsored in part by Blue Shark Vodka. All the taste without the bite. Blue Shark Vodka coming out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And by Spot On, tech that helps your business grow. And Joe Van Gogh Coffee, serving the community from seed to cup. And now conveniently leaving the table when the check comes. It's Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today on the show, we explore Durham with one David Flip Filippini. And you might know him from your favorite Korean and all other types of food, Kokyu Namin. Namin?
I do know what you mean.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We met for the first time today. This is a rare occurrence where somebody has been doing food and beverage, at least in the Triangle area, and I haven't met them. Thank you for gracing us with your appearance here.
Where you been hiding?
Yeah.
At home.
I became aware of Kokyu, am I saying this right? Kokyu Namin.
Kokyu Namin.
About 4 or 5 years ago, a wine friend of mine, Sean Miller, remember Sean?
Yep.
He's like, let's go have lunch. Best place in town. I'm like, okay. And we went. We had banh mi's. I was like, holy crap. Being from Los Angeles, where Asian food culture thrives and there's so many great options, I was remiss when I got here and found very few options that like really satisfied and scratched that itch that I wanted. But not after that day. I was like, oh, wow, this is ridiculous. And I will say, all that time, I just assumed that the owner was from Vietnam, and just with the name, with the style of food, with whatever. And today I see this tall drink of water, blue eyes, pretty light complected dude come walk in. I'm like, wait, who's this guy? Oh, that's Flip? All right. Let's talk about how and why you came to open this place.
Well, so we started the food truck. We started Kokyu, the food truck, in 2010.
Yeah.
We bought a truck. Had no idea what kind of food we were putting on it. It needed like 6 months of work, which I, had to do all myself. It was a secondhand truck that everything was broken and we needed to fix everything. And so got all that, kept my job. I was still, at that time, I was teaching culinary arts and I had the truck. Truck was all ready and I'm like, I don't know what we're going to put on this now.
But you just decided to buy a food truck.
Yeah, I needed to get into business for myself. I mean, great experiences with a lot of the places that I worked for in the Triangle, but it was just, I was at home. I'm like, why am I not doing this myself? We have no name for it. We have no menu. We have no anything. And my parents were, at the time, living in Southern California, and so we would go and see them a lot. And so we would fly into LAX, and just before we'd go down, they were down in the Coachella Valley, we would just stay in LA and just go try all these food trucks. Just what are people doing? What are they doing successfully? What is attractive? And so we came back. The truck was pretty much ready to go, had some licensing and insurance and all that stuff to take care of still. And my sister was getting married in New York, where I'm from. And she said, hey, we don't want you to cater the wedding. We got that taken care of, but we're going to have a ton of people up at mom and dad's house for this party before, like real close people, maybe, 50 people or something like that. She's like, would you cook? And I'm like, yeah, all right. So I made the decision. I was like, let's
drive up the food truck.
Well, we didn't drive up the food truck, but what we did, that would have been good. But what we did was I said, I've got these different menus that I wrote, and there was some there was an Italian thing, there was multiple different things that we could have done off the truck that we had. And
to preface, your family is of Italian descent, Filipino.
They are, yeah. So we went up there and decided we're going to do like 3 different menus for this party and let the people there decide what we should put on on the truck.
Test market
and
survey.
I had this recipe for our short ribs, which we still use on our banh mi's. On the truck, it was our most popular taco and short rib tacos, and that was like the overwhelming winner for everybody there. They were like, "Oh my God, these tacos with the bean sprouts," and it was wild. So that settled it. We were like, okay, we're going to go this route.
Yeah.
And it was pretty, it was pretty simple because we kept our menu simple. We had like 10 things. That was it. We just wanted to make them really great.
Did you literally go to the grocery store to source stuff, or did you know food companies up there?
At that point, up there, I had to drive like maybe an hour to Syracuse to get, because it's
upstate
rural,
New York.
way upstate.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
So rural.
Because we were
rural.
about to have a problem because before you got on the mic, you told us that you are a Red Sox fan, but then you said you're from New York. Being from upstate or Western New York, okay, that more explains it. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
and-
Okay, we can
and-
move forward now.
Bullet dodge.
Yeah.
All my brothers, most of my older brothers were either born or raised in Boston. So when they came to New York, it was kind of like Yankees fan at school and Red Sox fan at home type situation.
You were
Yeah,
a closeted Red Sox fan?
pretty much,
Okay.
But now I'm kind of comfortable in my own skin with that. But
Yeah, and I also just learned this, that yesterday, as we are recording on October 12th, was National Out of the Closet Day. So, welcome to your Red Sox fandom.
Go Sox.
Fanhood.
What? I would have lost that.
He was a closeted Red Sox fan.
Oh,
he's
got
out
it.
of the closet.
Oh,
as
yeah.
a Red
I don't
Sox
think
fan.
that's what that means.
I don't.
Oh, you.
It's not talking about fandom
Well,
of
it's
sports
just
teams.
being out of the closet. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be out of any closet.
No, what it means is to purge all the junk that you have in your closet so it's nice and tidy so you can put new things in there. That's what that means.
I see. Now I understand.
Right.
Anyway, back to food. So you're at your sister's wedding. You rock out the menu, do this awesome food, and then you're like, okay, we know what we're gonna do.
That was it. Came back to North Carolina with just a definite vision. Kokyu, that was a total middle of the night type thing, coming up with the name. But the menu was written, and it was like, cool, this is going to be really easy. We could run it with like me and my wife, and it was a weekend thing because we're like, we don't know what's going to happen, right? And 2010 was still a little early for food trucks. It was just starting to kind of, I think Olney Burger, Bulgogi was just around, and there was a couple others in Raleigh. I don't know if you remember, like Clausi's, Valentino's, some of those early food trucks, and I say early, but early for the new wave food trucks,
Sure.
not a lot of the.
There was definitely a new version of. This
Sure.
is like when people decided that they wanted to make them fancy and look like mini restaurants or so.
Sure.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Jeff at Big Boss Brewing, he was like, yeah, come on. I've known Jeff for a long time. He was like, I told him one day over beer, I was like, I think I'm going to build a food truck. He's like, park it here, and I was like, cool.
Nice.
I've got like a Friday, Saturday thing. It was like, let's go, every Friday, Saturday, I could keep my other job and just see what's going to happen. And it was like, by the time the food truck was ready, the wedding was in the summer. By the time we were ready, it was mid-November. And here I am, like rolling out to Big Boss with this truck. It was so cold, and I think our first day we did like $60 or something. And it was like all Jeff, like people were looking at it like, what is this thing, that kind of thing. So.
Well, I want to know what the name Kokyu Na means. But first, I want to take a quick break to speak about one of our favorite companies that helps keep the lights on here at the Kitchen Studios. I'm talking about Blue Shark Vodka, because Blue Shark Vodka is made with non-GMO heirloom variety North Carolina sweet corn that's distilled 4 times to perfection. The small batch process is a labor of love because after distilling the corn 4 times, that mash mallows for 28 days, allowing flavors to fully bloom and awaken. Finally, each batch is triple filtered, giving the vodka a smooth, clean finish, making the alcohol bite nearly vanish. This has earned Blue Shark Vodka's clever nickname, the shark that doesn't bite. So visit bluesharkvodka.com or check the link in our show notes and learn more about Blue Shark Vodka.
And while you're learning about Blue Shark Vodka, I want to talk about something that is spot on, and spot on for business like yours, for a taco truck or any small or big restaurateur. It's Spot On's integrated restaurant management system, and it could help make running a restaurant or a taco truck or any sort of business really that's culinary related less stressful and more successful. And all you have to do to get this end-to-end solution, which can be built specifically to your needs by a real person, is call Tanya Manibo. She's your local Spot On account executive, and she'll be your partner through the whole step of the way. Tailor make it for your business, like we said, integrated systems. Just give her a call, 858-213-7820, or shoot her an email, Tanya, TANYAM @spoton.com. All right. Well,
you said, well, we got the menu, we had to figure out the name, but what's going on there?
So that was like a kind of middle of the night. I mean, I had like 100 things, and I don't know if you've ever named something. I mean, you've got the kitchen, which is great, right? It's simple, it's easy,
Super
right?
simple.
But like, I don't know, with like what's in a name, right? And I'm sitting there late at night, I'm like, cool, everything's ready to go, and I don't have this name, and my wife's like, what are you going to call it? What are you going to call it? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm writing down all these things, and everything's like, no. And of course, just going through, I just wrote down Kokyu, and I think originally it was kind of a play on Korean barbecue, but spelled a little bit differently. How is it pronounced? And a quick search online, I was like, cool, that's never been used by anybody ever before, which is getting rarer and rarer, right?
Yeah.
But Kokyu is a Japanese word, right?
Well, so it's an instrument. It's a
Right.
it's a Japanese instrument, and it's also martial arts kind of breathing technique. And so, which I liked. It's like you had this tie-in where it's like Kokyu. It's an instrument. It's kind of almost, I guess you could call it Japanese, almost mandolin-like or something like that. And so I liked that. I was like, cool. It's an instrument. Nobody's really used that name for anything other than that. And then it's this martial arts technique, which is like, okay, that kind of ties in maybe somehow, whatever. I just circled it, and I was like, and I came back to it, and like the next day I was like, cool, I'm just buying that website. Which was a whole different story because it was like somebody already had Kokyu, and I was like, who is this guy? It's still up if you check out their website, just kokyu.com. It's like the coolest not my website that could be something. So I was like, this is cool because people are going to type in kokyu.com and they're going to see this and be like, how do I click? How do I do stuff? But so yeah, it was just what stuck in the middle of the night one night at like 3 a.m. I was like, I'm just going to circle that. And the next day it was like, cool, I need to get on, move on with my life as far as what's going on. And we didn't really, as far as, I don't know, branding has never really been my forte. And, but I knew, I was like, I want this truck I want to paint it. I want it funky. I want colors all over it, spray paint it, whatever. And initially it was like people drawing on the truck. It was people writing on the truck. And so we never even had something that said Kokyu on the truck at all. It was just like, cool, just make this weird thing that's out in a parking lot somewhere. And so, and after a while, people were like, well, what is it? What do I call this? And it was, I think my mom, she was like, you need to get on Twitter. I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Mom.
And I'm like, cool,
I just watched this movie Chef. That's how you get business.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was it. It was kind of just circle something on a piece of paper and go with it.
So that's the name, but you're doing the food truck, you're still working at the culinary school. Yeah. And at what point do you like, okay, this is viable?
I would say we did it for about 5 or 6 weekends, and it started to really pick up. And I think Big Boss had a couple events that we did, and we just had lines like crazy, and it was nuts. And it was just me and my wife at the time because we were just like, we just got to like make this work. She's got a full-time job. She's like, busting her butt for me on the weekends. And finally, it was like, okay, we could hire somebody, and we were starting to prep so much. The culinary school was allowing me to use their kitchen.
Oh, nice.
Which was awesome. And we were in there prepping. And I was also, some of the students were coming and helping me out. So I was I'd pay them to do some prep, and we'd load up and this and that. And the director came in one day when we were prepping after hours. He's like, okay, this is you're too much. I didn't think you were going to, we had like our own walk-in cooler at that point, and so, that was kind of the end of that, where I basically said, you know what, I got to do this full time and try to get out there and do it. So, gave a notice, finished up, I think, that semester, which was only a couple weeks of classes left, and then went on my merry way and needed to find a commissary, all that stuff. And there's a whole bunch of stories. That was a tough time trying to find, a commissary or anything, or convince somebody to like, hey, let us use your kitchen, that kind of thing. And so, so left my job, had the food truck. It's like, cool, we're going to do Big Boss. We started doing a couple other little spots here and there. And we were at Big Boss one night. We really started, it wasn't, don't get me wrong, we weren't making any money, but we were down at Big Boss, and we had a line. There was like 20 people. It was going to be a good night. And the Raleigh PD comes out, and they said, you got to shut this down. And I'm like, we're here. And I don't know if you guys recall, but there was a period there where some of the new food trucks on the scene were like jumping up on curbs on Fayetteville Street, and they were just like parking in front of restaurants and doing stuff. And we definitely were not part of that. But what I think the city council or something was like, we got to shut all this down until we could figure out the rules on what they could do. And so like I just quit my job and they're like, shut it down. And I'm like, well, we have permission to be here, we're licensed. They're like, shut it down. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So we had to close in front of a bunch of people. I'm like on the phone with Jeff, I'm like, are they supposed to be doing this? He's like, I don't know what's going on. So that was kind of interesting, because now we're like, oh, I just left this job, and we, but it just, so that kind of the timing there was perfect with like when Motorco and Full Steam had just opened in Durham, and Motorco was getting ready to open. Okay. And so I just hit the road. I just drove down there, not with the truck. I just drove down there, and I've known Sean for a long time, but I knew Motorco was opening, and they had that big spot out front where trucks could park. And they weren't even open yet, but there was people inside, so I'm just like knocking on the glass outside, and one of the owners came out and he's like, yeah, I'm like, listen, I've got a food truck. Would you want? He's like, yeah, come Sunday. Okay. I'm like, cool. So
you're hired.
Yeah, you're hired. So it was really that quick. So we pulled it down that Sunday and started going, and all of a sudden it was just like wildfire. That first Sunday was good, and then the next one was like, holy cow, and then it was just like go, 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 go. And then it became this thing where it was like, can you come Monday? Can you come Tuesday? Can you come? There wasn't enough trucks to really satisfy the needs at that point. It just grew so fast, and they were extremely gracious hosts, and they were like, the more you could come, the better. And so it got to the point where eventually we ended up buying another truck so we could go do other events and just basically leave that truck at Motorco, and just it was every night of the week for a long time. Wow. So,
and so you buy a second truck.
Bought a second truck mainly because we, then 2012, it was probably 2012, that was around the time where like food trucks were hot all of a sudden, right? And so everybody wanted one at their wedding, everybody wanted every event and this and that, and we're like, well, if we're parked down here, we have to make this choice, right? We could give up what we've got here that we know is set, Friday night, or we could go to this other event, and it could be a win, it could be a loss, it could be, or maybe it's prepaid or something like that. And, but we were constantly like, oh, well, what's the best business move here? And so we were like, we just need to get another truck so we could go and do two things at once. We could do the Motorco thing, downtown Durham every night of the week, and then we could also take these other events.
Sure.
And that was really kind of what put us into some sort of profitable situation where it was like, okay, now we could be in two places at once and do this. And it was stressful, but at the same time, that was kind of, I think, what made us kind of be able to be in more people's faces more of the time.
So how do you take two trucks into a brick and mortar then?
So at that point, we had several struggles because the commissary was no longer at the school. So we rented a kitchen from somebody, and he had just started this restaurant, and I think like a month and a half in, I went and the doors were locked, and called him up, and he's like, yeah, I'm done. And I'm like, okay, all my stuff's in there, right? So what are we doing about that? And it was crazy. We were sitting out back of the place waiting for somebody to bring the key, because I think the landlords had like changed the locks, and all my stuff's in there, all my food. We had a huge event coming up, and it was going to be a slamming weekend. And it's like me and three guys sitting out back against the kitchen waiting for some random person to bring a key to let us in to get our stuff out. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? I think I had called the health department being like, I don't think I have a commissary. Am I able to go and do these events? They're like, no, you can't do anything. And so it was wild. And as we're sitting there, I look at the building that is what was Nameen over there. And I see a hood fan up above sticking out of the roof, as I'm sitting there. And I walk over and I was like, this is a kitchen. And nobody's in it. It's just empty, right? There's no for sale or for lease sign or anything like that. I was like, I got to find out who owns this. And I think I did like a tax property record search, found the owner, sent like an email. I think I sent a letter to her house because I didn't get I think the email or phone number was old or something like that. And she was like, get in touch with this guy. And I called him up, and he's like, cool. Yeah, you could rent it. And it was tiny. It was like a 400 square foot kitchen, little 8-foot hood or whatever. But it was enough. It was like, cool, I could do this. But I had to, at that point, it was like rush. I had to buy equipment and do all this stuff. And we had a real ragtag kitchen there for a minute where it was like just whatever we could do. We need flame and we need like sinks, right?
Yeah.
It was like, that was it. It was like, and refrigeration, obviously. So there was no walk-in. So it was just like, just rolling as many reach-ins as we could get and let's go. So that was the beginning of Nami, and it was actually our commissary to begin with in this little thing. And what ended up happening is we had just a ton of people seeing our trucks getting loaded up, and they were recognizing our trucks, even though it's not in a very visible spot. You've been to Nami, and it was like way tucked
like a
away.
Tiny little strip mall, not facing the street.
But I think people were like going into Bojangles or something, and they were like,
yeah.
"No, that's that truck, right?" I don't even know how they were finding us, but they kept like coming and like knocking. They're like, "Hey, we get tacos and stuff like that." And we joked about it for a while and said, we should start selling food here, and then it got to the point where we're like, we need to start selling food here,
How funny. It's like you accidentally fell into a brick and mortar. Like
we totally did.
Yeah. That's interesting. Real quick, we'll take a quick break just to talk about this delicious coffee that we poured in right here. We've been talking about all these different exotic places to get all of this coffee from all these different places. But then Joe Van Gogh, the coffee of which I speak, sent us something that we're all familiar with, something that we've all had in our lives. We're talking about a French roast. Matthew, you do love the French roast. It's telling me that you get dark chocolate, smoky, and sweet notes, but it didn't have to tell me that, because that's exactly what I'm getting off of all of this. It's super rich. Hold on. It's delicious. The origin says from the Americas, which basically means it's a blend from all over like Central and South America coming around. It is USDA organic certified. It is a dark roast, which a lot of the coffees that we've had have been like kind of medium or light roast. So this one is the darkest roast that they've ever done, but they've also made it organic, as I mentioned. They blend it with high-grown coffee beans that can withstand long, high-temperature roasts to produce dark and rich blends. The carefully roasting process coaxes out smoky, sweet, dark chocolate from this delicious blend. Go get yourself a cup. Or a bag, I guess. You can buy a cup of coffee. Of
course you can. In any of their 4 locations around the triangle.
Yeah. Or just buy a bag of beans, grind it, and make it yourself at home. That's Joe Van Gogh. Go to joevangoghcoffee.com.
Taking care of a home is stressful. With so many vendors to find and manage, from plumbers to handymen to house cleaners, it's impossible to get consistently high-quality service. Enter Exhale, the only trusted partner homeowners need to maintain, clean, fix, and improve their homes. You'll have a dedicated home manager with one number to call for everything, and we guarantee our service. If it's not done right, we'll make it right. Visit exhaleathome.com to learn more and book a consultation. We'll take it from here.
You have the 2 food trucks. You kind of happen to cross a brick and mortar, and at this point, like, people are following your food. Doesn't sound like you're doing a lot of marketing. You're just cooking good food and finding out how to do it and where to do it.
It was Twitter, and I think we piggybacked off a lot of the marketing that was happening in downtown Durham at the time between Motorco, Full Steam. A lot of that was all brand new, so they were doing a lot, and we were parked down there permanently. So it was
breweries really helped out food trucks.
Oh, tremendously.
Or food trucks helped out breweries. Either way, they're symbiotic. I mean, being able to grab a quick bite and the fact of just getting like something different every day kind of made it cool. Except for, I guess for Motorco, you guys were just posted up like every day. So
yeah.
It's interesting though, like I just kind of try to compare life as a restaurateur to a food truck operator, and it's almost like you're like a single person without like a steady relationship. You're just like out on the prowl all the time looking for some business, like where can I go, where are the fish at, as opposed to being like, no, now we're dating, I have a lease,
right?
We're dating here, and then eventually like you get the building, okay, now we're married, and now people can come over to the house and it's more established and all. It's like being a food truck operator seems like a lot of hard work, and not just the actual work on the truck, but like knowing where you're going to sell the very next day, and like every day figuring that out.
It's very hard work. I mean, just the transport of goods, right? Keeping things cold, keeping things hot, and transporting and lifting coolers. I mean, just that alone is like, I'll probably do it again, but I don't ever want to do it again. That's tough. You take a lot of wins with losses.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, it's kind of like, oh, we had, sometimes my wife would say, you were so busy this month. Why didn't we make anything? I was like, well, you know what? We had some bad ones too. You load up with a ton of fresh ingredients, and we had a ton on the truck at times. I mean, it was just, you're not going to be able to like, we prepped a lot of those fresh vegetables, fresh pickles and things that don't have a shelf life for this event. And you're like, oh, we think there could be 4,000 people here or whatever. And it rains, right? Well, you just lost a lot of fresh ingredients. Not like that with everything, but our truck was based on a lot of fresh herbs and a lot of bean sprouts, right? You got you don't have very
Those are
long.
gonna last a
They're
day.
not going to last.
Too, yeah.
And so there was a lot of that, and so that made it an even tougher business because it was difficult to make money. I think that having two trucks definitely helped that a little bit. We could be in two places at once, but there was definitely a few. We lucked out early on because that first year we were open, that January had like these beautiful, like 75 and sunny weekends. It was like every weekend it was like, wow, this is unseasonably beautiful. And so we were just cranking that we were a couple months into business, but really tough business. Yeah.
Was that an impetus for you to create your kimchi recipe, your white kimchi, which you're famously known for?
The kimchi was so my brother's mother-in-law is she was North Korean, and she makes all of her own gochujang and the onggi in her backyard and makes her own kimchi and this and that. And so getting to know her, she was like kind of sharing some different things with me and different techniques. And I just, I wasn't, when we started the truck, I wasn't like a Korean chef. I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of Korean food. I had a few recipes that had been shared with me over the time, the short rib, some of the pork belly, but I didn't have this wide knowledge of Korean food.
That's the kind of style of food you were making, though, no? Like, I know you were making tacos, but it was...
But you also did banh mi, which is a Vietnamese dish too.
On the truck, we didn't do any banh mi. We did quesadillas. We did tacos, duck fat tater tots, not Korean. I don't know what that would be considered, but so we were. It was more of a menu that was
eclectic.
A little eclectic. A little like, what do you want to do? We cook food that we like to eat or we like to play with, and it's like, man, that's really good. Hopefully other people will like it too.
Yeah.
It was like
who cares? I mean, right?
yeah, really. I mean, it's good food, interesting, some unique ingredients here and there, unique flavors, and so Song, my brother's mother-in-law, was just running into her, at different times. And she's the type, she always brought her own food wherever she went. Like, she'd go to my parents' house, and they're Italian, right? We're cooking all this food. She'd have like what looks like bait, in like in a little lunchbox, like the lunchbox you have over there. This little thing she'd bring, like a cooled pack from Missouri, and she'd have sesame leaves and all this, her own homemade gochujang, and that's what she would eat. She wouldn't eat other people's food. And I'm like, I gotta taste this. And then she started cooking and showing me things, and the white kimchi was which we haven't done in a while. This might be a nice little. This might spark me to make another batch of that. But that was entirely her. Like, this is how you got to do it. You got to do it this way. So, and we do make kimchi. We just don't make the white kimchi regularly. So we do need to bring that back.
Yeah. And something I read about that you guys transcendentally communicate with you and your bromo-in-law.
A little bit. Where did you read that?
In the indie.
In the indie.
Shout out to the indie.
I think maybe a little bit.
Do you do transcendental meditation a little bit?
I don't know.
I mean, you don't have to.
I think I might. I don't. Is that what that is?
So, well, I'm curious. So I do want to get like involved into the menu and the food because it's
as it is today.
It's interesting. It's different. You went to the Culinary Institute of America up in New York, I take it?
I did.
Right? CIA? Yeah. And then you started working there. You were teaching there? Is that?
I was teaching on the weekends, so I was earning money. Some of the chefs had asked me because a lot of the chefs up there have their own catering businesses and things like that. And so I started working on the weekends. I was teaching adult education on the weekends. That was a lot of people from New York City, Westchester County. They'd come up and they'd want to like a retreat kind of thing. They'd come up for 1 or 2 days, take these kitchen classes. I want to learn how to cook at home and stuff like that. So that was what I was doing on pretty much every weekend when I was up there.
But like being the reason that you went to the CIA to begin with, was that because you wanted to become a chef and run a restaurant, or what was the goal?
No, I knew I wanted to be a chef when I was, or chef restaurant owner when I was probably about 13. And so I was a good student in school, but I just didn't like going to school. Oh, yeah. And so, my parents were like, well, you got to get a job. Like you got to do something. And so my dad got me a job with one of his friends when I was 13 at a restaurant, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is for me. This is it. Right. And it got to the point where I was probably about 15 and I was skipping school and going to work. I was just the school was not for me. And that was it. I was in kitchens. And so when I was 17, I think I was supposed to be in 10th grade or something like that. I don't know what was going in that building. There was something.
Seems old, but for that grade, but sure.
Well, if you're skipping a lot, you might have had to redo.
Yeah, maybe 11. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I wasn't going, so I have no idea what was going on in that building. It got to the point, I think New York State said, hey, you haven't passed PE in 4 years, so you have to even if you were to graduate, you'd have to come back for another year just to take PE.
That is a movie right there.
Right.
Not 40-year-old virgin. It's 40-year-old
Billy Madison lines.
Yeah,
right?
but it's all athletic. Just get a really chubby dude that
that was me.
Go back and do PE.
He's gonna do PE. Yeah.
That was me. So I was like, well, that's not gonna happen. So at the time, my brother was in southern Italy, living in Puglia, and teaching English. And I was talking to him, and he was like, I've got some friends that are opening a restaurant here. And it was actually an American pub in Bari. And he's like, they could use some help. Would you consider coming over here? And I was like, yes. I was on a plane in a week, and I just dropped out of school, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. So spent years in southern Italy. Wow. Opened this American pub, but immediately was like, I gotta get out of here. It was Philly cheesesteaks, and they were so wowed by a turkey club. They're like, oh, turkey club, and I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing? But then I started working at this pizzeria, and then I started working at Antica Taverna, and just really getting into that Pugliese, that simple Pugliese food. And after a couple of years returning and working in a few restaurants, and I was still young. I was 19, so I think I felt like I wasn't being taken seriously at a lot of the places that I was at. And in some ways, that was probably right. In some ways, I knew how to cook, and I knew what I was doing. The CIA was kind of the next step. It was I want to go get some formal education. I want to maybe age a couple of years and get some of this stuff under my belt and be taken a little more seriously.
Did you get what you wanted out of going to the CIA?
Absolutely. I wouldn't recommend it for people that don't have very much experience. And I think that's become a thing where it's out of high school, I'm going to the CIA. They used to require that you have, I think, a year of experience or something like that, but I think they have done away with that. I'm not sure. Don't quote me, but
that makes sense. If it's it's a trade school, if you will, but you shouldn't be completely green. I went to a music school that was like that, where they're like, you need to send us some tapes of things you've recorded and performed and all that. We want to know that you're not just some schmuck, and we have to teach you how to hold a chord.
Right.
And so you had to have a vetting process to get in. But it seemed like that's...
B.B. King was terrible at chords, so I don't know.
Thanks, man. What? Random
sports knowledge? It just reminded me of that thing that I sent you the other night randomly. But anyway, back to the culinary school. So
okay, but this is cool. So you went to Italy. You kind of studied in the School of Hard Knocks in the heel of Italy for a while, and then now went back, got formal training, and then that kind of gave you the tools and prepared, because I'm still I'm trying to figure out and then this guy starts cooking essentially I don't know if you want to call it fusion or whatever, but it's definitely what was happening in Los Angeles, as you said. Was it Roy Choi and
Gogh,
where he's mixing a little bit of Mexican food with Korean food, and that became kind of its own culinary style as well. And so this is, in very broad strokes, that's kind of, you're doing something like that.
Sure.
Where you're kind of mixing, I just was there recently and I had nachos at your place.
Yeah.
And there was was it brisket nachos, I think?
The burnt end, the ají verde, yeah.
I mean, just telling people, you got to eat that. It's crazy. And I was eating it in my truck, and then I just I actually looked down at all this food and I was like, I can't eat all this myself. I mean, I could, I shouldn't. I need to bring this home and share this mainly with my daughter, Alexandra, who's like every flavor that was in that dish is like her favorite food. So I just hurried home just so that she could eat it with me.
Sure.
And she's like, where did you get this? I'm like, yeah, it was like guacamole and cheese and beans and burnt ends.
The
and
cheese is spicy. The cheese is spicy.
Yeah,
I gotta let people know. They're like,
yeah.
this isn't nacho cheese, too spicy. It's spicy. It's hot.
And I will say this too, as a person that very much thinks about hospitality. When I first got this, so I went to your newer location, just Kokyu.
Kokyu, yeah.
And I was unaware that it was not a dine-in space. And I pulled up, and as I'm getting out of my truck to go in, I see people out front dining, and one of your servers comes up, and she stops me right at the truck as I'm getting out. She's like, I just want to let you know we're not a dine-in place, so I can take your order here and all that. And at first I kind of was like, but don't you tell me what I can do and all that. I kind of was a little miffed. And I was also just fumbling to grab my mask, and I didn't have it on yet. So I was like, she's like, it's fine. You can sit in your car. I'm happy to tell you about the food and all this and that. And I'm like, well, I always know when you go to Kokyu Namin to get the banh mi. At least that's what my before mentioned Sean Miller friend had told me. He's like, the best banh mi everywhere. She's like, well, we're much more than just that. And I go, oh, really? She's like, I implore you to look through the entire menu. She used those words, too. I was like, you implore me? She's like, I do. I'm like, well, now I feel implored. So I looked through it, and then she recommended and said, you want to do something daring and fun, do the burn-in nachos. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you guys also have crazy beverage offerings as well. And I was in my car. She's like, we have really good beers. I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to be driving. She's like, well, just get a couple beers to take home and have it there. I'm like, yes. Like, how am I going to say no to this?
Yeah.
By the way, give her a raise. She was super friendly, super awesome. And like, she was the reason that after all of this and the experience, I'm like, we got to get this guy on the podcast. I mean, that was kind of the impetus of it. It was just, I was hungry for your food. I've always thought your stuff was cool, and kind of in the back of my head, I always thought maybe we should I didn't know who you were, but through all of this, I'm like, oh, we got to figure out who owns that place and get that person on. And then I found it was you.
Wait, I'm curious, Max, what was the impetus to go there that day?
I was in Durham. I found myself in Durham. I think I was like at our architect that's building one of the new Clayton Crafton is in Durham. And so after the meeting was over, I was just kind of roaming around and went, ooh, I'm like in the south area of Durham. Kokyu Namin's there. And then foolishly, I just typed it into the GPS, and I thought I was going to Namin, and it took me to this other place. And I'm like, wait, where the hell am I? And I was totally disoriented. And then finally realized that
this
you had
lovely
a other
employee
location.
of yours.
Sure.
Walk you through it.
Everything changed last year, right? So we the original Namin location we closed in August of last year. Middle of the pandemic, it fed off of RTP like crazy. I mean, our lunches, you've probably been there at lunch, but sometimes it was,
line out the door.
And
crazy.
everybody was out of office. Our lease was coming up, and we were just like, you know what? I closed it in the middle of the service. I went back in the kitchen. I was like, all right, that's it, boys.
Really?
Oh,
you just couldn't.
They were like, yeah, just finish those sandwiches. We'll turn this off, and we're good, because it wasn't making sense. In August of last year, the vibe was like, okay, it went from like 2 weeks, couple months, and we're like, this is, it wasn't viable, and it didn't look like anybody was coming back to their offices anytime soon. And so it was like, I do not want to get into the winter where there's already somewhat of a slowdown in that area, and have to have my staff struggle or anything like that, or have money issues. I've worked in many restaurants that had that be the case, where it was like, hang on to the last minute, and it just, everybody suffers because of it. And we had the new location over at South Point, which was plenty big. We could always use more help there. Much bigger, much newer kitchen. The kitchen, like I said, over at it was a very piecemealed together kitchen, because we fell into a brick and mortar. We didn't design that. Right. And so, we closed up, and we told everybody, if you want to work, it's only a mile and a half away. Let's go. You're welcome. Everybody's welcome. And I think out of 15 people, at that point, I think 11 were like, yeah, we'll stay. And the others were more part-time and maybe didn't want to be there anyway. But it was a tough time for everybody in the industry. And I think.
So what changed then, besides you have the new, more modern kitchen? Did menu concept change at all?
Well, we knew that we needed to bring Nameen over there, right? We needed to bring that menu because we weren't serving that food. We were serving different food at the time. So the plan was, okay, we've got to make a few upgrades to the kitchen here. We got to move the bread oven and stuff like that over. I think we might have closed for a couple days and did all these changes and brought that menu over, which was great because then, again, it wasn't that far. Where Nameen is, everything east of there is RTP. So we weren't pulling any traffic from that demographic, and everything west of there was actually kind of crossover business with our South Point location. So, and those were neighborhoods, right? So we basically took all of our neighborhood and was like, here, just go to this place, right? Which was great because it increased sales over at that on that side. It also created a little bit of a buzz, like, oh my God, they closed Nameen, and it's over here now. And so we instantly started getting busier and busier. And so what was kind of a dangerous kind of move, closing a restaurant, just that whole thing, and then taking on 11 staff members, right, and saying, don't worry about it, we're going to make this work. Instantly we kind of saw, okay, this is going to work, right? Because we brought a lot of that business over, and that was when we were like, I think Chef was like, we should do some burgers too, right? Because they just the mall was across the street, and they all those restaurants were closed. And Zin Burger, I think, she's like, that was a big burger restaurant, and like, where are all these people in this area getting burgers? And so we're like, okay, we'll do a little mini burger concept, and then the fried chicken, and we just kind of went on and on and on until the kitchen couldn't take anymore. And we're like, stop, Flip,
Yeah, because you have 4 or 5 different kind of menus going on there.
Yeah,
now?
like the Madang crispy chicken. It's like kimchi brine chicken. We have Flip's Griddle Burger, Nameen, and then the Kokyu menu, rice bowls and like fusion tacos, and then we also added P&L beverage because we had the beer wall where people could pour their own beer, and all. Obviously, that's not happening right now. So we were like, okay, let's start selling growlers to go. Let's bring in a bunch of packaged beer, wine, and this and that way. Because a lot of people are looking for some kind of one-stop shop, especially in the middle of the pandemic and stuff like that. And we're like, cool. I said, if we're going to do beer, we're going to have just crazy awesome beer. And it was almost like, we don't even really want to make money off this beer. We just want to have like the best, and like, so people could come here. And then instantly it was like, we were like selling cases of beer, right? Yeah. People were pulling up just to get beer, right? And it's delivered to your car, which is great.
And your server, she's like, I think, is it Maria? Is that maybe
Maria? Yeah. She's awesome.
She's like, we have Grim. And I go, what? And she's like, Grim, the beer. You know it, right? And I went, yeah. Yes, I think I do. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I've had it. She's like, it's the best beer in town, or like, it's from, I think, upstate New York, right? Brooklyn, yeah. She's like, that's the beer you need to try. Which one do you want? Like, it wasn't even, I'm like, you're awesome. Like, and all this. And sure enough, I got a couple of those and then had them that evening.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Maria's great. She loves to taste everything that we have. And I think a lot of people do.
She was drinking it at the car.
She was at the car. She's like, you got to try this stuff.
Like, you want to hit off this?
Which made you feel
that sounds
very
right.
comfortable.
Well, that curbside thing, I mean, that was one thing that we saw was kind of missing, was like, run out to the cars. Like, don't make this hard for people in the middle of the pandemic. Like, we go out, we greet you at your car, we bring the food out to you. There's no, you have to get out, you don't have to do anything, just let's make this easy. And I think that worked really well for us.
That's something that it can't be stressed enough. And not talking about my thing, but at Crafton, we're going to do all the online ordering and ordering from your phone and all, but I want to stress to people too, like, we're going to have people that talk to you and sell to you and let you know what's going on, because that experience that Maria provided for me is something that I was not expecting, going to a place where she kind of cut me off at the pass and was like, stay in your car type of thing, in a very polite way. But I'm like, oh, this is going to be a lousy experience, and I'm going to feel like I'm like I'm not even wanted to come in or so. But instead, it was exactly the opposite. It was like, oh no, I'm feeling like I'm totally taken care of, catered to, sold, and inspired by like what this person has to say. It's really cool. Now, I mean, maybe that's just Maria's an amazing person, but I think also that's the environment that you're creating over there. I
think so.
Hospitality.
And it's everybody. It's not just Maria. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Maria's great, and she does know the good beer. but it's hospitality. When it's curbside, is something that's like, it was like, well, what at that point it was like, what can we do? Let's do it. right? It wasn't like that's off limit. You know what I mean? It was like we need to, and that was a whole. We're still doing it, right? And I think it's just become so easy. Like even though we added some seats outside and all this, we do a ton of curbside business because it was like easy, friendly. You could talk to people. There's suggestions, and now it's just a thing. So it's a whole new business model from where we really started Kokyu.
Well, it's like when we went to Lexington, North Carolina, and they did what do they call it? Toot and serve?
Toot and serve. You pull up into the back and honk your horn, and somebody would come out and take your order.
Yeah, which has been going on for a very long time there. That was way pre-pandemic.
It's just like thinking of like the old 50s diners where people come out on like roller skates or whatever. But that's cool. I mean, they don't have to be on roller skates. It would be cooler if they were, because that just seems efficient.
Rollerblades.
Rollerblades, yeah.
Definitely more possibility for error. Yeah, like dropping your food all over your car.
But that's entertainment too. You're like, that's hilarious watching this person totally eat it. Except for now I'm hungry and now.
And how funny would it be if it goes all over your car? Not that funny.
Yeah, it's not that good. So now the current state of your business, the food trucks we're not doing food trucks?
No longer. We sold them. We sold them both. I mean, that was a tough business. It was certainly a tough business to run while running restaurants, and it was an inconsistent business. And I think every food truck owner out there that might be listening to this is like, it's inconsistent, right?
Yeah.
And so we started aiming towards, because we fell accidentally into a brick and mortar. We were like, oh, wait a minute, this can be different. And so
nice,
I think at some point we might get back into it.
Yeah.
In a more organized fashion, in a more
But you've simplified your life. You have the one location now, is what we're saying.
We do,
and
I think that growth is probably on the horizon. I think we're probably going to reopen Nameen at some point. I think some of those offices are really starting to come back a little bit in RTP, and so we're on the prowl to reopen that.
No,
same location.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not. It was a blessing and a curse, leaving that location. I mean, it was an old building. It was an old kitchen, and we kind of rammed. I mean, when we had to build that dining room, we just like cut holes in the wall and like, cool, there's a dining room on the other side. So the building itself had some
challenges.
Some challenges, and so we wouldn't necessarily go back there, but.
So the people that want to find you now that you're going to get the NCF and bump, as we call it. So how do they go find you? What do they do to get your food?
Depends. If you want to eat with us, we have, I think, 11 tables outside. They do fill up at right at lunchtime, and of course at dinner time, but they're always wide open. They're order at the table, so just walk right up, sit right down, scan the thing, order. Somebody will be out. Hopefully Maria, she'll
hopefully you get request Maria.
Yeah.
But if you want to just order online, come by curbside pickup.
And that's what most people do now. And some people even order online, and then they sit at a table and be like, "Hey, that's my name. I already ordered." Right. So it's just so they could get that table, and they could get it quick. But
you just go to Kokyu.com.
You can go to KokyuBBQ.com and click order online. And if you have the Toast app, some people use that too. You could search us on there.
And you're right by South Point Mall.
Now. Yeah, it's kind of like sort of catty corner on 54. There's a Waffle House across the street in the South Point Professional Center.
Cool.
This is at the end of the show, but I did notice in doing research, this is crazy. In 2016, USA Today and Yelp got together to do a story to find the best restaurant in every state, and they selected Kokyu Nameen as the best restaurant to dine at in North Carolina.
Yeah,
that's wild, man.
It's pretty wild, and I think that the internet just in general has been good to us. I didn't pay anybody, and I certainly didn't pay Yelp.
Thank God, Mom. But Filippini told you to get on Twitter.
That's right. And so that was interesting, and I think it was my mom that sent me that. She's like, "Hey, look." I'm like,
what?
"Wow, really? What?" I think that we've always driven the experience to be not just the food, but the people. And, I'm a big fan. I don't know if you know the book, the Good to Great. You ever heard of that?
don't
It's about
read.
companies why did these companies go from good companies to great companies, right? And a lot of it is this and that, and it's kind of outdated. But some of it, like get the right people on the bus and then decide where to steer it. That was like one thing that stuck with me for a long time. And it's like the right people, right? And it's always been the thing. It was like, these need to be people that I want to hire people that I could talk to, somebody that I want to have a beer with, right? That I truly enjoy their presence, and get those people on your team. And so by doing that, I think that do I think we have the best sandwiches in the state? No. I mean, I think they're great, and I love it, and I'm kind of proud of what we've done. But I don't think we're that. I think it's the whole experience by having great people serving them, people that other people want to talk to, that are smiling faces or whatever. I mean, that sounds so cliche, but it really is.
It's cool because it's rare, to be honest, that's like part of your recipe.
It really is. It's maybe the biggest part of the recipe, because even just the making of the sandwich, it needs to be done by somebody that really cares about it and cares about you and cares about the people that are coming in and so on and so forth.
So let's hold there for a second, because I know we're wrapping up on time, but I'm sure that other restaurateurs are listening right now and be like, well, Dave, how did you do that, right? Because everyone, first of all, is just trying to, at this point, hire anybody who has a pulse that is willing to work. But then so is the key, you just hire the right people, like you were saying, like people that you like personally, but then they have to have some sort of buy-in to the business also. You could like a lot of people, but they might not want to buy into your business.
A couple things that have been great for us, obviously always be hiring, always be interviewing. And I think that's a challenging thing for a lot of restaurant owners. You got to find the time to do it. How many people don't show up to an interview? I mean, I can't tell you how many days I've had like 6 scheduled and none have
that's a very typical situation in my life.
Right. And so always be hiring and make the time to interview people so you could find those people. And then we offer huge bonuses to our current employees to reference somebody. If they bring somebody on and they make it 60 days, they get a big bonus.
Oh, that's cool.
And then every year that they're there, they get another bonus for that person being there.
That keeps on giving.
It is, and it's.
It sounds like multi-tier marketing over here.
Well, it works, because nobody wants to bring somebody else on unless they're, you don't want to be the person that brought somebody on.
Oh, believe me.
And it does happen.
I vouched for my butthead roommate of back in the day at Wolfgang Puck. He's like, come on, man, let me work there. I'm like, you're not a good employee. He's like, come on, dude, I'll just be a busboy. I'll just do whatever. I'm like, fine. And then I'm like, yeah, this guy, he's great. We'll hire him. And they hired him, and then he just no-called, no-showed like 3 days in a row. I'm like, you're such an asshole. I just talked with him yesterday on the phone. It's kind of funny. And I reminded him of that story. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember I did that.
Yeah.
Well,
then he went on to write the story about Eddie Van Halen and wrote a book about it, and then did the Deftones documentary. So he's doing fine for himself, but horrible busboy.
You don't need to be a good busboy. You don't need to get a high school diploma. You just need to be good at, I guess, what you're good at. That's the lesson. Did you ever get your GED, by the way?
I did. Yeah. I don't know why. I've never needed it for anything.
Maybe you needed it to get into CIA? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think I got it afterwards. Just
funny.
Yeah. It was
Maybe
like
at some
like
point
15 minutes.
You'll have to
it's like,
15 minutes.
You had to run in place and do your times table to get your PE also.
Yeah, he's doing like the shuttle, like with the eraser. He's running back and forth. Oh, check my heart rate. Okay, I'm good.
Count up to your heart rate.
Did you have to like climb a rope or something?
No, believe it or not, for the GED, no PE.
No PE.
Yeah,
that's
nothing.
funny. The thing, yeah. Well, now that you have little kids, you might have to like show them, long division, and so there you go. That's like the one time you'll use the algebra you learned or something.
Yeah.
is just to tell your kids how they can learn it, and then you'll never use it again later on.
Because if you're going to start a business, this is actually how you want to do your math in your books.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's get out of here. Before we get out of here, we're going to send you home with a delicious pint of proof alcohol ice cream that has 7% alcohol, 7%
the ice cream?
ABV in the ice cream.
Ooh.
Yeah, not messing around. Think differently about your dessert, because I guess the way you were thinking about it before was you just wanted delicious, yummy, sweet stuff, but now you can get boozy stuff inside of the sweets. So you can select a flavor that's in there. I think we have strawberry moonshine, we have bourbon caramel. I think we still have a pumpkin spiced version in there as well. There's some fun stuff. Coconut rum. So get yourself some of that, and for those out and about, they can get themselves some proof alcohol ice cream at many different places like Lowe's, like Harris Teeter, but preferably
The Triangle Wine Company. Yes, that's right. And they have 4 locations. They're in the Bedford area of Raleigh. That's in North Raleigh. They're in Cary at Waverly Place. And they're also out in Southern Pines. And then, yes, of course, the my favorite location, Holly Springs. But Triangle Wine Company is a great resource for all your beverage needs. They might even have that Grim beer, or they can get it for you if you ask.
Well, Maria drank them all already, so
Shucks. Okay, well, they'll get the next batch then. But go to trianglewineco.com. Don't forget to use the NCFB promo code for a healthy discount, or you can go to their locations and they'll also do curbside. Or they can also do delivery. That's trianglewineco.com.
All right. Well, Flip, thanks for coming out here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Matt, we're going to have to do a little lunch date, you and I. Go meet over at Kokyu.
Oh, I am definitely going to be there because...
we'll sit on the tailgate of my truck and knock down some
burnt ends nachos.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Well, for all of you out there, go check out Kokyu, check out the online ordering, or just go there. Ask for Maria. You will eat and drink very merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.